And to add a touch of legality or a legal explanation to some of the matters that are currently ongoing, we thought we'd have with us a senior legal man. He's no stranger to all of us. He's right here in the studio. Mr. Krishmal Warasuriya, good morning to you.
Good morning, Faraz, and good morning to all of you.
And Krishmal, this is why we thought we'd touch on your legal expertise and give us a legal perspective to a few matters. But before all that, you know, and do join me in having a cup of
I take some sugar.
tea. Please do, please do. It's if you've got diabetes, sugar is like they don't mix. But otherwise, but the Jones tea is nice and rich this morning.
Yes, thank you. I've had this once before.
You have?
On your.
Ah, good, good. Now then, I noticed something, and which is going to be part of my first question. You're wearing a 10th anniversary sort of badge from, I think it's Lanka.
Yes.
And what is your connection there?
Faraz, I'm glad that I was actually, when you invited me on the program to discuss this issue, I was very happy because unknown to you perhaps and most others, my very young days, I was a licensed crew member of the then Air Lanka. I was actually there during the transition between Air Lanka to Sri Lanka because I originally started off as trying to become a pilot. I went and joined the flight operations room and then tried to earn my way private pilots through the flying by cabin crew and so yeah, so many things. For 10 years, whilst my university was on, I was a crew member traveling around the world, and I'm very proud to say that at the time we only had 4 aircraft.
Right. Were they Airbus?
No, they were all Lockheed TriStar 1011s, 2-100s, 2-500s. Then there were 2 leases on the 2-200s, but lovely history. And 4 aircraft to run all over the world, 35 countries, 46 cities, I think. And I can tell you that this is why, when the issue that we're discussing, which we can discuss, but I know how hard we worked as a crew. I know how hard the staff of Air Lanka, later Sri Lankan, put their heart and soul. The recent incident, Wuhan flight Farhan, Farhan Hanifa, one of my batchmates, who was a purser who led the crew, who joined Air Lanka then with me to China to bring those students back. And to date, and I'm told that today even their families are being discriminated, saying that they've carried the virus back. So this is how crew members risk life and limb for us. And I'm telling you, bubbly young crew members who have come possibly from good educational backgrounds, but because they love the flying, they love the traveling, and they join. And for everything from bomb threat, hijack, firefighting, any emergency, you go through training, rigorous training, and you'd work all of this for someone down the line, top management, who doesn't do anything to go and wrangle off a lot of the money of the company. And every day, this company has become a white elephant because of
that. And what is this? So we've heard extensively about this Airbus deal, as they call it. And it has been rather contentious. The national airline, the national carrier, has been contentious almost all throughout its time. But right now we're sort of confronted with this information that the move to purchasing and leasing more Airbus aircraft and the move towards a all Airbus fleet, very almost proudly announced by the then CEO. We now find that CEO is arrested, he's been remanded along with his wife, and in between it appears that Sri Lanka has paid, the country through Sri Lankan Airlines has paid AirCap, party to this transaction, over $126 million is what I've calculated it at. Well, including the bribe.
So the transition to Airbus from the TriStar. We also had a few Boeing 737s which I flew, but this as I said, during the transition I was there in the airline. The brand new aircraft, we've been also to France a couple of times. It came from Toulouse. So as I said, as I finished university and law happened, that's the time that I left. And I must say at that time for us, none of us actually knew of any scandal. I mean, we would have, as staff, we ought to have known. But it's later on that I noticed, just before coming to the show, I did some research. Now, there is a cabinet memo, a very revealing cabinet memo of the Ministry of Public Enterprises.
Right.
To 2017 to 2072.
So it would be Kabir Hashim.
That's right. Where they speak of the ordering of these 5 aircraft, the Dash 900s, A350s, and how originally when they negotiated the contract, that's a very revealing cabinet memo if you want to go to it, but too much detail for your program. Where the subsequent discussions in 2017 during this cabinet memo, Faraz, it appears that the cabinet, who ought to have been asked permission, at least the minister, doesn't appear to know how the early termination clauses exactly, why the payments are made for early termination of these agreements, having ordered the aircraft, how such payments, now at one point
how such payments are made.
Also how such payments are made. Now, one payment originally was US dollars 154 million. For if you you ordered the aircraft, and if you want to exit, the early termination clauses in the contract have been originally US dollars 154 million. Of course, they were subsequently negotiated and tried to bring it down.
Now, just want to stop for 1 second there. $154 million, you say. I checked up as well the list price, the rack rate, if you like, of an Airbus A350-900 in 2018 was approximately United States dollars, please be seated, United States dollars 317 million and a few hundreds. So this is 154 is perilously close to 50%.
Yes.
I think that's criminal.
Absolutely. So so on one side, I think present Sri Lankan Airlines, presently, as indeed the Republic, through the Finance Ministry perhaps, or even in an internal investigation by Sri Lankan Airlines, they'll have the documentation, hopefully, need to go into this and find out who in the world agreed, number one, to purchase all these aircraft, because if one government agrees to purchase, another government comes and finds that it is not in the business interest to do so, and it doesn't come within the business plan. For us, you're talking of, as you said, 154 million US dollars, and this is a country where mothers are jumping into water with their children because they can't buy one little bit of milk, that little sachet of milk for their child. This is a country where a boy dies out of eating this little fruit because he was hungry. And in this country, we have an airline that says that we agreed for US dollars 154 million US dollars to pay as a return price in case we didn't go ahead with the contract. Now, and we have actually paid most of the amount because we sent the aircraft back. So between government to government, one decision, another decision. Between these two decisions, myself, you, taxpayers, we fund. And this is why they say we don't have now money. We don't have money to pay back debt repayments and our loan repayment. Now, for us, the question is, who's going to go into this? Someone has to come out with this. And I dare say this is good time, opportune time for the airline to go into with a fine-tooth comb and see how the dickens did we lose his money.
Absolutely. Now, the British court, thank God for the British in this case, have now made our life, infinitely easier, surely, because they've got Airbus on the back foot now. They've agreed that they've broken the laws, that they've paid inducements to sell their aircraft around the world, and the president of that court made this point that the problem with Airbus was that this problem of paying for inducements was endemic. They had one department dedicated to this thing. And one of their main people at Airbus referred to this department as, I don't know whether we should get the beep ready, but, they said that it was bullshit castle. That was not my words. It's in there. in the part of that order, in the court record. It's there. That's what she said. Now, it's clear from the other matters that have come up. They paid $7.5 million. They paid, that was called pre-delivery charges. Then they paid another pre-delivery charge, $19.2 million. Then the $154 million got negotiated downwards. Oh, well done, chaps.
Yeah.
$98 million. I may
without a single aircraft being delivered.
we didn't even get the serviette or anything like that. Nothing.
Not
even
a
seat.
cashew nuts.
Yeah, not even a packet of cashew
Not a
nuts.
cashew nut.
Yeah.
But we pay millions of US
Yeah,
dollars.
so it's 98 plus 7.5. That's 25.5, right? And little bits and pieces. It all comes to about 425 million dollars.
Yeah. And this is
we have
US
to add
dollar
the
million.
Yes, this is US dollars, and we got to add the 2 million that went mysteriously
So
to Kapila's wife's account in Brunei, and they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. So what's happened in this case that you speak of?
Yeah.
Is that UK, whilst they were going into high crimes,
Yeah.
they have regulations that goes into financing of high crime, and in that they found out this scandal, this bribery scandal, where Airbus Industries attempted to bribe several other companies and entities in several other countries.
Yeah.
A nice question arises out of this, Farah. In order to espouse their sale,
Yeah.
or to, a sort of Santosam saying, okay, we look after you, you make sure that your company or your country buys our aircraft.
And keeps bowing out as well.
And keeps going out as well. Yeah. So, number one is anti-competition. But in any event, so they've gone into it under their criminal laws, and as a settlement in a high court matter, this is what is important.
Yeah.
As a settlement in a high court matter, the high court, the Queen's Bench, the high court say that there is a settlement that Airbus Industries agreed to make payment to UK an amount of this much. Then they've also agreed to settle an amount in the US, in the United States, whereas Washington District Judge, I believe, has agreed to take that as a settlement amount. Then some money is also paid in France.
Yes, biggest amount in France.
The biggest amount in France. Now the question is for us. Now, if now also in the same order, they go on to say Dame Victoria Sharp, the president of the Queen's Bench Division, has approved the settlement and that was stuck with the UK Serious Fraud Office.
Yeah.
And for that, the countervailing provision is that for 3 years they won't go after Airbus. So you pay this amount outside of court, and we won't prosecute you for 3 years.
So they've got to be good boys.
Good boys. Now, in the same thing, they say that the company had paid bribes in Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia. Now, that's how the Sri Lankan thing was caught, and thanks to people like you and other journalists, they dug up how the corrupt scandal went through.
Yeah.
The question is this. Now, if these monies were settled to UK, France and US, I dare say who have much more money than we do.
What about us?
Precisely. What about Sri Lanka?
Yeah.
What about the fraud that we suffered? Now, we have caught some man, and there is a matter going on in court. I don't want to comment on the facts of it. And then they allege that he had taken some bribes through his wife's account, which compared to this US dollars 150 million or whatever, it's not negligible for you and me, who are trying to attain early living. But perhaps to people who live in that white collar arena, it may be a very small amount.
But I want to say, you see this thing here, your
next to
little
the lion.
badge
Next to the lion.
Next to the lion.
Yeah.
That you're wearing that proudly because you have this passion for our national carrier.
Of course.
Call it Ceylon, Air Lanka, or Sri Lankan.
Yes.
Whatever. You wearing that with pride and with passion. Where's the pride and where's the passion when you arrive in this country and you're given expatriate terms, which in money matters means a lot more money, a lot more money. And where's the passion and where's the pride? When you come here, you're highly paid, and then you're caught with your finger in the till.
Yeah. I don't know whether they have any passion at all, leave alone for this logo for us,
Yeah.
whether the lion logo carries any passion for these people.
What was the passion for? For the dollar notes?
Yeah, so the dollar note possibly. But can I
Yeah.
now, the point I was trying to raise earlier for us is now, there is a settlement arrived at overseas
Yeah.
to pay certain countries, UK, France, USA, who anyway have a lot of millions of dollars,
Yeah.
as a settlement for attempting to bribe.
They're getting paid 3.6 billion
Yeah.
with a B, a big B,
Yeah. Now my question is,
euro.
there are two things that arise for us in Sri Lanka now.
Yeah.
Number one, whilst we, as I said, some man and his wife have been arrested and put behind bars investigating the bribe that they say they are said to have been taken.
Yeah.
What about the loss that the Republic, our government suffered, just like these countries? Who is going into that?
Yeah.
I pose the question. Is Sri Lankan Airlines going into that? Is our government going into that? When are we going to also ask the government, the Airbus industries to pay us the monies that we lost on this scandal? Number one.
Because that contract is tainted.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Now, number one. Number two for us, remember, the early amount we discussed, the early termination clause,
Yes, yeah.
154 billion US dollars.
Yeah.
Now, that was paid on the premise there was a contract, no?
Yeah.
That was paid. Now, if the bribery underscores the contract, that becomes an illegal contract.
Yeah.
And if the contract was illegal, the monies that we have paid arising out of that contract must also be legal.
Absolutely.
And therefore, we don't actually need to pay. Actually, I think if we run on that legal angle, get back the US dollar 152 billion, this year we may be able to get off without a budget. We may be able to fund the debt repayment of the other loans that the country has taken. Now, who's going into that? That's the question. If the monies that were paid as I'll go very slow with your viewer. If the monies that were paid for early termination was under a contract with Airbus.
It was.
It was under a contract.
Yeah.
Because some government ordered, next government didn't take, so we paid early termination. Now, two questions arise. Was that also part of an underhand deal? Number one, that needs to be investigated. Number two, if the contract has been now nullified by the revelations now, that it was sought up, the contract was secured with bribes and therefore making it illegal contract. Everything that flows out of the contract, such as the early termination payment, must also now be nullified and we must be repaid that money.
And we must get repaid our deposits.
Absolutely.
Pre-delivery charge 1, pre-delivery charge 2.
So who's
and
going into
everything
this
else.
now?
Yeah.
I want to know who's going into this now.
And who in the whole course of things, who should be doing this? Shouldn't
Well,
it be?
I think I'm trying to second guess what much more erudite and more learned administrators,
members of the board,
members of our legislature, members of our executive, and all of them should be doing. But in my little humble capacity, may I think perhaps the airline, as the entity that incurred these losses, needs to immediately launch an internal inquiry and find out, go into the facts of the matter. As I said, they will have the documentation. They need to find out, well, okay, now work backwards. Now we find on such and such a day, the bribe had been offered. And on such and such a day, the UK court have found that during this period, bribes have been offered to secure this contract. During that time, what were our agreements? Were we negotiating? Had we signed the agreements? Then if we had signed the agreements, do they become unfair contracts or illegal contracts under the law by virtue of the present revelations? Then go backwards, work backwards and do even a forensic audit and see whether we are owed that money. Now, number one, that's the airline. But remember, it's a semi-government, or it's funded by the government. Whenever it's in money, we pump money. We need money, we pump money into it.
500 million rupees of the EPF money went there.
And it's subject to review by parliamentary committees such as COPE. So therefore, this argument that it is part of that, extended arm of executive government, or not necessarily really under a ministry, but it is executive government in extension. Therefore, it becomes part of our problem. The legislature, Parliament needs to have a debate on this, ask for information, perhaps even order a special commission into it, and go into what happened to this money.
And you verily believe that our parliamentarians have the noodles to understand all this?
Faraz, that is a question that now these days we are coming close to election. People are talking of sending more qualified people who understand the law and people who understand these things to discuss and debate these things. Now that's the question I must pose to your viewer. Each time, you throw peanuts, you get monkeys. Very simple. So if you want to keep up with the rest of the world, and if you want professionals handling, I'm not saying necessarily that everyone that goes into parliament must have a PhD, but you need to figure out whether the people that you're sending, even from the larger parties, whether those people that are put on a list in front of you as possible persons to be sent, your legislature or your executive, whether they are eligible and qualified to be sent there. I mean, you send persons who record telephone conversations and then play it to the public and try to gain cheap publicity on it. Then I mean, you're going to have this sort of thing continuing till the time of your children.
Yeah, but so what are the chances of recovery?
Well, I'm not saying it's straightforward.
Yeah.
Now you see
but they are on their back foot.
Yeah, no. But I mean, but it'll have to be a smart response for us.
Yeah.
So you can't, like we did as soon as this so-called Japan regime came.
Yeah.
You take a letter and go to the sheikh and say, "Can you please give me back?"
Please give me back?
You can't be so naive on this thing. You have to have smart people who know the subject to go into this. Now, we see that in the UK, the prosecution has happened as a result of the bribery act coming into play. Then they have gone into serious fraud under the bribery and corruption regulations and found the illegal practices. Now similarly in Sri Lanka we have bribery act now. In the bribery act, in as much as taking a bribe is an offence, sections about 16 to 19 I think. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but overall we know that the law is that we have, other than the usual criminal laws that deal with financial irregularity and criminal misappropriation, all of that, bribery act specifically, the specific law deals with in as much as soliciting a bribe is unlawful, giving a bribe is also unlawful. So giving a bribe can, recently there was a foreign national, if you remember, it was reported even foreign nationals trying to give a bribe to our public officials were touched by our law. Now, here of course we will have to also visit the question of where the crime was committed. In this day and age, for us, jurisdiction is unlike those days when we studied criminal law 20 odd years ago as young law students, where you have to have the place where the transaction took place, jurisdiction. Now that we may have to go into our criminal procedure code and our Judicates Act to see whether this crime had been committed in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, it may be said that our law won't touch it. But that is why these things like international agreements, where if crimes are committed transnationally or internationally, or if we have reciprocal agreements with other countries, if a crime involves our country but it was committed elsewhere, or these days we have the issue of internet crime. For example, most of the agreements are transacted over the internet. Right? They are actually, hardly some of them are actually physically signed. They are agreements that happen in the web space. Now, whether jurisdiction of a country can touch a web space. Now, these are questions that come within today's legal jargon.
Yes, the United Nations has got a special section that deals with international treaties. And a Sri Lankan was involved in all that. And his name is Dr. Palita Kona.
Yes. I was trying to comment that. That's why I say we have ratified several, by the way, a proud product of another good school in Mount Lavinia.
Yes, absolutely.
By the way. But what I'm trying to say is, on that international arena, we have made either regulations or treaties to touch this very angle. How do we touch issues like this? So someone with some brains needs to go into this matter and find out whether there is a way that Sri Lanka can also now mount a successful challenge with Airbus France and say, look, chaps, you need to give us this money back.
Yes, but I have a viewer who's just sent it. You can send us your questions, of course. This is your program. Please send us your questions by SMS 0772 300 305. And out of several already, this one I thought takes the cake. No one will inquire into this scam as bigger names are involved, ... similar to the central bank corruption cases.
Well, if that is so, I still believe that I am a realist. I understand what happens.
What are you going to say? We've got Dapula de Oliveira.
No, I don't want to mention names. But I also am a political idealist, for us. I believe that things can always be better. So I believe that it's never too late to change a system. But the right people have to get into it. As you say, it may very well appear that no one is going to do anything about it because bigger names are involved. But when are we going to change that?
Yeah.
Then have you given up as a republic? That's my question to you, whoever posed that question. Have you given up, say, okay, nothing's going to change, there is no one that's going to do anything, so this is doomsday. Well, if that is so, all of us might as well just pack up and go and just leave the robbers to go on robbing the country. But if you and I want to live here and make it a better country, then we can't be, I'm sorry, this pessimistic. We need to go out and make sure that something happens.
But you can see how this pessimism is being driven.
Of course.
We have the same kind of thing at the United National Party leadership. Because one chip's not willing to give it up in spite of all the defeats and so on, and now the others are doing what you're saying, well, let's pack up and go. That's what's happening there. They're packing up and going, leaving them who won't leave in their place.
Yeah, but do you not realize that that's the very thing that those persons who don't want to go want? You see, it's very easy to get people like you and I and your viewer there and everyone else who's maybe interestingly watching this in the morning to disappoint us to the level where we give up. Say, well, we can't do anything.
Well,
that is a very victory of the offender. The offender wants us to give up. And you, the viewer and the citizen of this republic, I continue to say, no, as soon as you give up the fight, the offender wins, the corrupt politician wins, the corrupt backstabber wins, the swindler wins, the fraudster wins. And for you to make sure that they don't and your children win, the country wins, you need to keep fighting.
You've got to get off that do-nothing seat and keep going. And, you know, this one is obviously coming with a person clearly who's got the loyalties down in Mount Lavinia. I repeat my call, so says viewer. Time for the royals to bid adieu and give the boys by the sea the opportunity to do what they did in 1948. Usher in an era of new freedom to our paradise isle.
Indeed.
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 Wonderful.
Indeed.
That's absolutely super.
Yeah.
But I honestly, do you think Dr. PB's job, well, not him, but Dr. Articular, do you think his job is going to be a bit easier now? Because he might have to find about $125 million less.
Find $125 million less, I don't know whether it's going to be easier for you.
Because Airbus is on the back foot now.
Yeah, but then what are they trying, my question is, it will be easier if they're actually doing something to regain that.
Yeah.
See, by prosecuting this man for some 2 billion rupees or 2 million rupees or something, we are not going to catch the bigger fish, we are not going to get the bigger money. That's my question. So, my question is, whilst we may very well prosecute the offender who's seen to be the offender here, with some money is paid into the wife's account or whatever, let that case go on.
Yeah.
But the bigger money, the bigger loss lies here.
Yeah.
Number one, through that ordering of the Airbuses, which we finally didn't go through, as to why did we order in the first place, because the cabinet memo, as I said, is very revealing.
Yeah. It went through because they agreed to pay $16.4 million.
Yes. So then it becomes a legal contract, right? Now, that loss that the country incurred, then having ordered the early termination payments that we made, which the cabinet itself says they were unaware, sometimes they haven't even approved it.
Yeah.
How did those early terms amount into US dollars million go off?
I don't have much sympathy for Kabir Hashim, but in this
absolutely not. He ought to have been responsible.
Yes, because in this case, you know, he says that the ministry didn't even know anything about it.
No, but he can't. I saw Faraz. That's an absolutely responsible statement. With all due respect to our good friend Kabir, he comes to Parliament and says after the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, surely if that was so, during that time he ought to have come to Parliament and said, look here, I am the minister, I'm supposed to be in charge of this, but I don't know what's happening. People are being appointed over my head. I don't have any control.
Yeah.
You don't wait till the scandal comes out and the corruption comes out and the government goes out of power and you lose your office.
Yes.
To then come back and cry and say, Ane, I'm sorry, you know, I didn't know. Other people are appointing over my head. Surely that's a very responsible statement to make. You must account for your actions. If you were irresponsible and if you didn't take the right action, you ought to have walked off.
But don't you think that the public have a brilliant chance now because they can just get together and not vote for any of them. They can vote for a new lot.
Yeah, but then is the new lot going to be any better than the old lot?
Well,
You see, this is what we do now.
the chances are.
Yeah, for us, new lot, you have to look at the new lot. I know it's a cliche. You say new lot, and the new lot, after enjoying perks, becomes a bad lot after a while. So you need to
It's a
with a fine
passing,
tooth comb.
it's a passing
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
big oak tree. We need to grab it.
Yeah. So, but what I'm trying to say is, you need to figure out whether go into the behavioral patterns, the integrity of the persons that you're electing as much as you can.
Yeah.
I know that all of you can't, but we have to allow chances to prevail, but go into it as much as you can.
Yeah.
But more importantly, remember that every government to date has been doing it.
Right.
We come into power, as soon as they assume state authority, they seek to show the wrongs done by a previous regime, just to show that they are doing something. That won't do. That is not going to put the bread and butter on your table. No. That is not going to alleviate your debt burden. That is not going to alleviate your problems when you go to the bank tomorrow, when the credit card company is calling you for your repayment. The country needs to be geared towards making money to live, income generation. Each government, for the first couple of years when they come, we've been seeing this. No, they show everything wrong that the previous regime have been doing. We found rogues, but ultimately you find that they go on for a while, no one actually does anything. Now here is a chance for this His Excellency the President, who formed a government that received a massive endorsement from this country, the voter. Here's an ideal opportunity for His Excellency the President to say, no, this is not how I'm going to run my government. I am going to show the difference. I will prosecute. I will bring the perpetrators to justice. I will show that I mean business. And if His Excellency does that, I am sure at the next election, there are going to be a lot more people getting behind His Excellency and saying, let's remake this country. I hope that His Excellency keeps to his word and gets the perpetrators to book.
Krishma Vanasuri, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. It's been a great pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
And that's the way it was on Newsline Live. Take care. Have a wonderful day ahead of you. And of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.